Hello, my fellow mods, and welcome to The Perspecta. I'm your host, John O'Neill, and in association with DC Hillier and MCM Daily, we have just spoken to a very influential voice in my life, who also happens to be passionate about mid-century modern furniture, design, hi-fi audio, and vinyl. I've spun the records of his band, Minus the Bear, for many hours, and hearing his personal connection to Herman Miller and diving into his experience touring in Europe and writing music is now something I will always remember. I highly recommend listening to his catalog of music right before or after you've finished listening to this omnifaceted conversation with Jake Snider.
Hey,
Jake,
how's it going?
Nice to Zoom meet you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seriously, man.
Awesome.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You know, the band has been disbanded since 2018, so it's nice to have, you know, a few opportunities to be on some podcasts. It's like, oh, you guys, okay, cool. Still remember me.
Well,
but
that's
especially
the other thing.
Especially something like this, like where it's not just music, it's like something else, some other interests. Yeah. So it's cool.
Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty to me. It's like, yeah, I've done some of this other stuff, but you know what I'm really interested is, like, you know, people can come and nerd out a little bit and, you know, maybe talk about some stuff they might want to, cool. You know, in their careers. But ultimately, you know, the more like I'd say we put it out there, the more we find that people love this stuff and it's part of their lives in an intimate way, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's been really cool. I mean, I think, you know, you broke up or disbanded at a good time, ultimately. I know you've sort of mentioned that before, but went out with a bang. I did go to the farewell tour at awesome. Warsaw in Brooklyn, which is great. We stayed probably to the very last second to get a poster signed by all you guys, which was cool. But yeah, and now it seems like, you know, you've bunkered down a little bit and maybe had a new gig in hi-fi, which you know is such a natural fit. I've been in sales for a while in advertising, and it kind of led me to think I could, you know, fake hosting a podcast, right? But awesome. You know, when it's something that you're passionate about and that you're really interested in, you know, it comes so naturally, and you can make those connections. You know, with folks, I'm sure at the store. How's that been? You've been enjoying it?
Yeah, it's good. It's a great store to work at. I have been into hi-fi for years and years and years, and it's been difficult to find a hi-fi shop that doesn't feel stuffy or off-putting when you go in. Like it's just one of those retail experiences, I feel like, where it's hard to get the education you need from the people working there because it just has a stuffiness to it.
Yeah.
And this is a shop that just never felt that way. You know, it's really welcoming, and you can sit and listen to music for hours and they don't care. There's no, you know, you can have a beer. I had to get my servers accredited, you know, like little license in order to work there so I could sell beer.
That's amazing. Talk about, I mean, that sounds like an atmosphere I want to be in. And
it's really cool.
I'm at 101 level as far as, I mean, probably even less than that as far as hi-fi goes. But luckily, my audio guru, Greg here.
I don't know if I'm a guru per se, but
I mean, we can embrace it.
I'm maybe at level 102.
201.
It's so hard to have a hobby. I guess I can call it a hobby like that when you have no money.
It's the hardest part. Yeah, it's the hardest part. Yeah, it's that's one of the reasons that I started working at the shop was to get the discount.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's been also been the worst part. I haven't made any money working there for sure. So.
Right. This is all just a big barter.
Yeah, it's like cyclical. Yeah, I mean, all of my hi-fi gear I've gotten for free, more or less. People throwing things out. Like I have a Fisher X200 that was in the trash. It was like glued to a box or something. And I was like, I'm going to take this. And I took it, and I have a dual CS 5000, I think, that had no arm. Nice. And I bought an arm off eBay, and that's my setup with some Klipsch, like 3-way weird
Nice.
speakers, and yeah, so
Awesome.
free, no money aside from the, little bits I had to buy. But
Right. I mean,
can't believe
hi-fi.
I can't believe how ahead of the game you are, man. Free is
trying.
good.
Free is the best.
Yeah, you're playing with house money, right? Now
Yeah.
you can go splurge.
That's right. And buy records. Otherwise,
Right.
I'd just be sitting in a room with hi-fi gear with nothing to listen to.
Yeah.
That's true.
Which is records are also expensive these days. So,
Oh my God.
yeah, we're in a bad situation. It all costs money.
Right.
That's
Well,
right.
I was gonna say, I mean, I do feel like this career is a bit of an intersection between, furniture and audio, right? And
Mhm.
similarly, you can find good stuff in the trash at a thrift
Yeah.
store.
Yeah.
If you sort of know what you're looking for, and that's kind of been our mission here with the furniture. I mean, it's about education and people
Mhm.
putting in the time and trying to show them as I learn, right, at let's say enthusiast level. And Greg's, I'd say he's the 101 on the furniture stuff, but now he texts
yeah.
me and he's like, oh man, check this chair out. I think this is XYZ designer. I'm like, you've got the bug.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just
true.
wait,
And
my friend.
that's true. I mean, we've found some really cool pieces, maybe not even name designer
Yeah.
pieces, but at antique stores or whatever. And we found like a Naugahyde Eames shell chair at a thrift shop for like $25 before. So you
No
never
way.
know what you're gonna find if you're looking,
If you're looking,
So
keep your eyes out.
yeah,
Yeah. Now I've
people
been
don't
into
know what they have sometimes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked to another collector and kind of brought that up. Like do you feel bad? And it's tough. It's tough. I'm sure it's similar with hi-fi a little bit. Maybe people are listing stuff that maybe they don't know exactly what it is, or outside of having a record player and setting it up. I don't think I would have known that like orthophone needles are so expensive, right? Cartridges
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have understood that if I were, looking around and understanding sort of the nuances if I, landed upon a console record player, in a shop or something like that. So yeah, it's fun. I mean, I do want to totally dive into furniture a bit and just understand,
Yeah.
where that started for you.
Well, yeah, my dad owned a Herman Miller office furniture dealership.
Oh wow.
And so I was always sitting in these chairs my whole
Yeah.
life, and
Yeah. Wow.
it was kind of part of growing up. And so his dealer was called MBI Systems, and it was in Seattle. They had a Portland office with just like one person, and a Honolulu office with
Ooh.
one person, which was
That's fun.
awesome because we got
Yeah.
to go there quite
Did
a bit.
you? Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, so
Nice.
they would service hospitals and whatnot down there, and up here, just office cubicles for the most part, and carts, and all the fun Herman Miller stuff that people
Yeah.
don't Action Office 3, and people don't really think about that as much. But that's where kind of the core of that business is. So
Yeah.
like Microsoft or the Safeco, and so a lot
big
of these
Seattle
places,
client. Yeah,
big
yeah.
Seattle
It's a
clients,
great
and
business and
so
expensive.
oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a friend who
So
works at Human Scale, one of the newer companies, and even their monitor arms, for example, are are so expensive, right?
yeah, and the service that goes along with
Oh
it
yeah.
and all that. So it was, and I worked in the warehouse, and when I was able to drive, I started working at the warehouse and
Yeah.
setting up those office cubicles with
I
the
bet.
install team. So
Yeah.
real hands-on. But yeah, I mean, there's always been some trickle down of furniture from my dad as things got kind of moved into the as he upgraded stuff.
Oh yeah, totally. You're
So
like,
it's
don't get
just
rid of that one.
don't do anything with that. And then throughout time, he'll just be like, oh, I found this, like this Alexander Gerard print
I was
here.
curious.
That's
Yes,
And
that is
so
beautiful.
I'm like, where were you keeping that
Right,
thing?
right. Where's this
Like
one?
that was never hanging on the wall when I was a kid. So,
Mm.
but yeah, this is a pretty beautiful
That's gorgeous.
That's
piece
awesome.
here. So,
And I mean, I follow a couple. Gerard, there's a guy. I don't know if you've looked into him at all. There's a guy named Vince Bravo. I've chatted with a little bit about coming on the show, and
mhm.
I think he and another collector have an archive. I can send you some of this stuff, but
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
I haven't seen that print. I mean, and I love some of that. I love it in guitars too, right? There's a
Mm.
guy, I forget his name, Terry something, that collects all the Fender like
Oh yeah, the
ephemera,
old,
Oh
right?
yeah,
the
yeah.
old,
And
yeah.
and um, it's so cool when you're a dealer. You get some of those inside, promotional items that then, there's only 10 of them. And I wonder if that was
Is
like
this
that or.
is that the guy that like on Instagram he'll have all these early Fender like
I pulled him up just so we can
Did
call
you?
him out. Terry
Yeah.
Foster.
Terry Foster.
yes,
That's what it
exactly.
is.
So
Oh,
like
man.
Toronto.
What a
based guy.
collection. And I've looked for
yeah,
Gibson, I've looked for other, but his
he's got
just
like
seems the most
invoices that are
extensive.
signed by
Yep.
Leo Fender and
Leo
things like that.
Fender.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wrote a book, Fender: The Golden Age, 1946 to 1970.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, Terry,
awesome.
we're coming after you. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
definitely.
incessantly message you on Instagram.
I got some Fenders here. So.
yeah,
Not
Yeah.
quite that old, but
we could showcase them. But no, I mean, I feel like guitars and amps, they all have kind of gone together with mid-century furniture and the
Yeah.
design aesthetic, which is cool.
Yeah.
I want to go into that a little bit, but is there any other pieces or specifics, as it relates to your dad that you were able to
Yeah, absolutely. Let me
inherit? Yeah, let's see.
you guys
Let's
want to
see,
go
let's
on a
see if
little
we
bit
can
of
do a
a,
little tour.
going on
a
a ride
tour
here.
here?
We'll brace for it.
So like this is kind of the most to me kind of sentimental piece here. So this rocker here,
Oh
Um,
wow!
Cool.
it's got the kind of it's like red and blue tight
Like a
checker. It's not a
stitch.
checker, but weave stitch. Yeah.
Yep.
And I got this on my birthday, like my very first
Oh,
birthday. You probably
wow.
can't even read that, but that's a little plaque that has my birthday on it, my name. And so when a Herman Miller salesman
Wow.
had a kid, they would give the salesman a chair with their kid's name and the date of birth and stuff on it.
So
That's
cool.
so cool. Yeah.
I
So
did
my
not
sister
know that.
has one too. And yeah, so my dad was a salesman for Herman Miller before he owned the shop. So
Sure.
yeah, that's pretty sweet. And then
Yeah, that's beautiful.
got the
The
Oh, yeah.
lounge chair, which
you go.
also
There
kind
you
of
go.
dovetails into the hi-fi thing because you see those in so
Mhm.
many listening rooms.
Yep. A lot of
Um,
listening rooms. I mean, it's an atmosphere. It really is,
Yeah,
and that's special.
And this is just the current hi-fi.
Oh man.
So let's
Not so
go
bad.
there.
Okay.
Let's go there. Not that
Gotcha.
I'm it'll help me afterwards. We'll do some research and I can
Yeah.
start to learn. This has been my process.
Yeah.
But what's the current rig?
So there's the Graham LS58s, and these are a British broadcasting company design. They're big studio monitors they used to put in all the BBC studios.
Oh wow.
It's like a 12-inch driver and a 1.5-inch Audix tweeter, and it's a big box. It's like
Yeah. I love that there's no TV just sitting in the middle of that whole
Yeah,
setup right now.
our living room
That's amazing.
purposefully does not have a television because that would be awful in here aesthetically.
Yeah.
And then Rega turntable
Nice.
and Name Electronics. So Super Nate 3 and a NDX 2 and the associated power supplies and whatnot.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, that was one of the hi-fi shop kind of
Yeah. How long can I
splurges.
hang around and work
Yeah.
a couple hours?
And then yeah,
And now
this
you can
other
serve beer. I love that. I love that even
yeah,
more.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
pretty awesome.
That's great.
And then I don't know how I forgot, but like the the splint.
Yes, the
Yeah.
splint. That was the first. That was a deep cut. That it
That's a
seems
deep
like
cut.
as I'm looking around and just thinking about people that I enjoy, right? And trying to get them on. When I saw the splint, I said, you know what, this goes a little deeper than your average Eames chair, lounge chair
Yeah.
owner. What's
Yeah.
the story behind that?
Well, that was we've had that for 13 years or something.
Oh wow.
But it was like my dad's birthday present to me one year. Came wrapped in the, brown paper and stuff.
Right.
And I guess they're more valuable if they remain in the paper.
Oh
But I'm like,
really?
no, it's
I
going
didn't
on the
know that.
wall.
Nah, it's gotta go
Yeah.
up. That's a feature. I did notice the one, the storage unit, the bottom with
Oh yeah.
the circles.
We got this little dude from Modernica.
Oh
So
yeah.
Nice.
yeah, a reproduction. And then the Modernica makes these coffee tables it's got walnut and fiberglass
Cool.
on the top.
That's nice.
So
Oh, I see. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I like
let's
that.
see.
I'm big into just, respecting the game.
Yeah.
Reproductions are going to happen. Hopefully
Yeah.
they give some sort of credit, right? It becomes a little bit more accessible.
Yeah.
I think Modernica is doing some really cool stuff from what I've seen, and
Yeah, and
really,
they're doing
bringing it
they're
back.
doing like the shell chairs in a real fiberglass kind of the way it used to be done. And we were looking for like the low lounge fiberglass shell chair.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of the stuff that is authentic, these like the Herman Miller are the plastic chair
Yeah,
shells.
probably.
So we went with
More
another
recently.
Modernica
Beautiful.
Nice.
actual fiberglass.
Gorgeous. Yeah, it's
Nice.
it's such a special collection, especially that it is such a connection to your family. I mean, that is amazing. And we've on past podcasts with DC, we talked a little bit about the Nolan Herman Miller merger, right? Hope that
Yeah.
what comes out of that is hopefully a concentration of and a combination of everything good, right? That both of those companies are doing. But I would imagine that with, the pandemic and office life, changing, for lack of a better word, that they had to do something.
I hope that there's very little like artistic collaboration between the two.
Right.
We'll see what they can come up with new stuff, but like hopefully there's a custodial kind of relationship where all of the classic stuff, or maybe even delving deeper into those old Knoll kind of designs and bringing some of that stuff out too. Herman Miller has really been great about that. I mean, who did Herman Miller buy them, or did they just merge as equals? Or
I believe the initial news was that they merged as equals, the way it was presented, but I do believe Herman Miller bought them. So
yeah,
go Dad.
Go Dad. Yeah, exactly. I'm not even sure if my dad's aware of that event.
Oh, wow.
So I'll have to ask him.
Wow. Yeah, have him over. Listen to a record.
Yeah.
Break the news. Easy. Well, I guess it's good news then.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I randomly met somebody locally who opened a shop for some home decor, and she worked at Maharam, and said that so far the merger seems to be, the right people seem to be in place to get the best out of it, right? Which
Awesome.
is the hope. Let's go record collection. How vast is that? And the other thing I wanted to ask was any 50s and 60s love Whether it's jazz or Sinatra or anything like that?
The collection is relatively large. It's nothing exceptional. I did a lot of record shopping in the 90s. And like when I was in college, we had an amazing record store called Fallout Records on Capitol Hill in Seattle.
Sure.
And I went to college up on the hill. So like at, lunch, quite often I would go to Fallout and buy records. And back then I was focused on like Touch and Go and Thrill Jockey and this kind of Chicago Midwest kind of angular music like Juna 44, Shellac and Tortoise and a lot of that kind of music. And
Cool.
then I've probably got more stuff in storage than I have up here, but it's a good amount. I wouldn't, I don't have thousands and thousands of records.
I mean, some of that just gets so crazy. But even I think I have about 100, and now I'm trying to I'm on Discogs fairly frequently and trying to, fill in my collection more purposefully of the things that I want to, I think about it sometimes as like a legacy, like I'm going to put in my will or, put a box that says, handle with care. Between that and all the furniture, it's like, you better appreciate this, whoever you are in the future. I don't have any kids yet.
Yeah. And we had like the vinyl thing. Like I only used to play vinyl because I had a digital collection of music, but it was back kind of before streaming services. Yeah. The Apple, you'd buy an Apple Music record, iTunes or whatever, and those things just sounded like garbage. Low bit rate.
Yep.
And it was
peer to peer with one file to another using as low of a transfer speed as possible. Sometimes it's just like it degrades it. So it was a good introduction to a lot of different music, but
it was like a virtual record store.
Yeah.
But that was mine. So I stuck with that until streaming became much higher quality. So like Tidal and Kobas and whatnot. But
Kobas.
It's really nice. Mm-hmm. And streamer technology became incredibly good. So now I kind of split it. And if I really, really like a record, I will seek it out. But, and like the question about 50s music or, like I kind of just jazz really. And like, I'm no jazz connoisseur. So it is a lot of the kind of, like, Miles Davis kind of blue or, just kind of the typical stuff and a few like things where I just kind of found it in a, digging around and
love
at the
those.
store and But
I found a Django Reinhardt like Parisian swing record, and I would just play that over and over, and I feel like nobody knows that record, but it's got that place in my heart where all of them back to back. It's coming next. I'm also a big like bossa nova fan, so like Stan Getz and
stuff.
Gilberto,
I love
one
that
of my
stuff.
favorite.
Absolutely, but not much of the Sinatra type, all that.
I'm learning.
It's almost like some of my 50s kind of aesthetic stuff. I don't really dig the atomic age kind of 50s
really
stuff.
Kitschy
you know
stuff.
what I mean? The kitschy stuff.
I feel like I'm right in the middle. I always think about that question, like maybe for future guests. Where are you on the spectrum of like sleek mid-century modern and really kitschy atomic retro stuff? I would say I'm more on the sleek modern side, but sometimes something will come along and you have to appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the difference in my perspective is you can have some of that atomic age stuff, but it is kind of the kitsch factor, whereas the mid-century modern furniture can work in almost any design environment, you know. Like we have a 1935 house, and it's definitely not the 50s style mid-century modern house, but this is the kind of house that people would have this kind of furniture in back then. you kind of in your mind think in this kind of house you'd have some fussy stuff like a big Chesterfield, but like leather buttons kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people did have this simple, nicely designed furniture, like post-war stuff.
Mm.
Clean lines. It all
Yeah.
seems to fit. When we talked to Sam Hildreth, his name is. He's like a Paul McCobb collector
Hmm.
and now museum exhibitor locally
Hmm.
in Kansas City, and it was really about the fit. He had, I think, on the small side, a ranch house initially, and
Hmm.
the furniture just fit better. It
Hmm.
sort of has a natural, place in that kind of environment. And I
Yeah.
think, that's really, they inherently go together, right? Like you said, the Eames Lounge, music, maybe a cocktail or or
Hmm.
something. I do have that, and it's interesting. Like I both see that as a vision of sort of, this grandiose future, right? Where you're setting the scene of where you want to be. And it's like, okay, well, if I can afford the Stall House one day in LA and I could throw a cocktail party there, like that'd be a cool goal, right?
That's a goal.
But
Yeah.
right. Or something similar, close enough. But I feel like, what I've heard you say about your music and your lyrics sometimes is certainly, in my mind, setting a scene is it's about nostalgia.
Hmm.
And I feel like these two things are very similar in what you did with your music, lyrically. Certainly, I'd say when I'm talking about Europe, right? I thought it set such a scene for me. And like, was some of that purposeful to see, what others' reactions would be? Or, did you have a pretty concrete vision in some of those works? When you were writing about what did you want a sort of listener to experience?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to kind of take like an experience or like some version of an experience that you kind of fictionalize or whatever, but like
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
didn't have to be this big story. It was more like, how do you get this feeling of a specific moment,
Yeah.
or like the fictionalized moment that's
Yeah.
based on the specific moment, to
Right. Right.
be relatable to like the audience or something like that. I did, I tried not to get too much into flowery language and things like that. Be more
Yeah.
like simple and
See
direct
that.
and kind of, um, I mean, even with like the literature that and the poetry that I read like throughout college, like I um, was really into like the modernists, like
Sure.
Hemingway and Joyce, and yeah, it kind of does dovetail into the furniture, like that era of art, but like tried to have like an economy of words that, like not make it too like, what's he talking about? Or like,
Right.
Mm.
you
Right.
know, have
Relatable, I'd say still
yeah,
metaphorical in a lot of
yeah.
ways, but it to me, there was this, to an extent, futurism about it too, right? You were taking something that you had experienced, maybe glorifying it a little bit here and there, and then making that relatable to somebody else, and giving them the ability to interpret it. I mean, I was probably just coming off studying abroad when I
Mhm.
was, listening to Absinthe Honey, and it's just, it was right there for me. It's
Yeah.
really incredible. I also, I mean, just talking about design and maybe the band a little bit, did you have a lot of input in, album design or some of the music videos and some of the direction there?
Not really. I let those people take kind of control of it. Some of the design, like when I first saw the cover of Planet of Ice, I was like, what in the world is this? And we had
Where are we
our
going?
yeah, our good friend did that design. And but like once the music, and I just started to understand like,
Yeah.
okay, this is kind of works together. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Omni design was, we'd had the record title during the recording process, and somebody just kind of drew the kind of square design,
Yeah.
and we brought that to the designer, and I mean that was pretty, I think, intuitive for him to just develop it into that kind of painting kind of look,
Yeah,
like kind of the spray paint kind of stencil-y kind of look.
totally.
But I definitely didn't, I just didn't step into that very much. Dave, the guitar player, is a graphic designer, and
Oh, cool.
so he was very involved in all of that. And
you gotta compromise and know your roles a little bit here and
yes,
there.
stay in your space. But
right.
and like videos, I absolutely hate doing. So like it's not.
Yeah, that can
I'm
be a
I'm
lot.
not an actor, and so it's very awkward for me to like try to pretend to be playing music or
Sure.
all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I know. You're like, the cable's not plugged in. Like somebody's gonna notice
Exactly.
that. And
Exactly.
I for a while in music wanted to always record live. I'm like, if we
Yeah.
don't record live, like, this is cheating.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I would, and then then Greg would come along on our early records in one of our bands, and you'd be like, no, you can just dub that in. It's fine.
You can't record
It's
live.
cool.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
recording every drum separately.
Well, everything came out
Yeah.
horribly, but I was like such a stickler. I was such a purist,
Yeah.
But what I do love about it too, number one, a lot of art references, both in your lyrics, and like in the My Time video, right? There's that Mondrian, moment where you
Right.
had all the colorful backgrounds and stuff. Like it's little stuff like that. I would say the fact that you're not trying to fake it and be an actor, and I thought about it like breaking the fourth wall a little bit. You guys will smirk or do something funny, and or have a song title, right? That's an inside
Mhm.
joke, and it's like the motivation clearly isn't to impress the audience, right? The motivation is to do what you want to do, and I think
Yeah.
having it come from that place is so genuine, and people can feel that.
Yeah, we never had a lot of like, I think the song title thing was kind of the biggest gimmick we had.
Yeah.
and we kind of quickly stopped doing that after like a couple records, because we were like, if we did have a song on the radio, how is somebody going to request that song if the chorus is this and then the song title is this? And
it's a point of function.
but yeah, we just put on jeans and shirts and went on stage and played songs, and didn't really want to have a lot of other decoration to go along with the music. Just we came from very kind of punk rock roots, and hardcore and that, and didn't really want to, or we just kind of naturally took some of that vibe where we used to be in bands that thought playing on a stage instead of the floor was some level of like,
whoa,
separation,
whoa.
Yeah.
So it became just a continuation of that idea, or the making sure that the audience was not on a different level than you. And we enjoyed talking to the fans and being like on their level, and trying to take the that division between the dudes on the stage on the record and the people because we were the people in the crowd as well,
totally,
at many times. So
totally.
and I totally respect bands that put on this incredible show, and get into this persona and whatnot. But that was never me or the rest of the guys. So
yeah. And sometimes it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we in our last band, we started experimenting with the projector, right? And put some up behind us, and it was like, okay, if we designed it, or we worked it out as a band, we tried to put something genuine out there, maybe it'll work. And then you curate, little fog helps, again, set an atmosphere.
I mean, I love that projector kind of stuff. We never really got into it, but I wanted to. All I wanted was like, once we were like doing bigger clubs and like Planet of Ice came out, I was like, we need lasers or something. Like we need some,
that's very laser. So
started going into like a nice light show. Yeah, the aesthetic of things is, whether it's videos, which I think for our band was kind of hit or miss. Some of them really worked, and some of them were like not my favorite personally.
Sure, I get you.
And than like stage design, stage shows, and like backdrops, and making sure it's not just some kind of like the name plastered behind you, but
Right.
something a little bit cooler than that, without making it just focused on the artifice of the whole thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And your music, I would say is so layered, atmospheric in ways, even the gen, right? Like
Yeah.
lot of layers, lot going on in a really coordinated fashion. You don't need much more.
That band was 2019, and the drummer Eric, who like I had been a huge fan of, Eric Ockery, was in, Christ on a Crutch and Galleon's Lap with Nate Mendel and Greg Anderson from Engine Kid and Sun, and
Yeah.
he was in Tree People, which was one of my favorite bands growing up, and his sister Carrie Ockery was a singer of Hammerbox and Goodness. So he was like, I met him at the recording session for Voids.
Cool.
He was talking to Stuart, the owner of the studio. I just kind of walked up and was listening to them talk, and Stuart was like, "Oh, this is Eric," and I'm like, "You're Eric Ockery," and so we just started chatting. And he'd moved to Tacoma, where I'd moved.
Oh, so
And
cool.
so we started hanging out and got together with his friend Nathan and Justin Tominga, who was in a couple bands down here. Pig Snout was one that he's in with his kids.
That's
when they
so
were little.
Cool.
Yeah, they're awesome. And now he's in a band called Assertion with William Goldsmith from Sunny Day Real Estate, and they're also amazing. But like, so we basically went into the studio and just hit record and started playing.
Wow.
So it was I don't know if I did any overdubs on that session. So
there you go.
Cool.
It was all very, very loose.
That is as genuine as it gets.
Yeah. So it was almost all
you
live.
You can feel that. It's very in the pocket. It really, yeah. It's everybody. I don't know if a lot of people have checked that out, but I would check out that EP. It's awesome. Just very atmospheric. I love that. So many layers. And I would also say vocally, I know there's no vocals on that record, right? On
Yeah,
that
no,
EP?
Yeah.
But your vocal style is so perfect for, the dynamics, in my opinion, of, what you did Minus the Bear. It just, it worked. You couldn't do too much more when you got like, collectively 6 DL4s flying around and repeating all sorts of tones.
Yeah.
Did that ever get confusing? I'm so curious. Like, I'm sure your parts were pretty well rehearsed by the end, but early on when you're fumbling with 3 in a chain, was that pretty crazy?
I mean, that was like Dave's thing. He brought all that to the table, and I was like, I want to get in on some of that action. That looks like fun. So I started figuring out just little parts that could be inserted, or he's like an expert at it, like very few times live did things. If something went wrong, it was the gear that malfunctioned usually, like, which is
it wasn't the Dave.
It wasn't the Dave. Yeah. But like for me, I mean, there were some times where I was like, oh God, what have I done? This is not like, everybody's going to be like, this is, screw up the whole thing. Train wreck territory.
That's funny.
But yeah, it's hard. I mean, there were some parts of songs where it would be a pretty essential part with the samples, like 2 samples preloaded kind of thing. And everybody stops, and then I'm supposed to do this sample thing. And it's like, had the wrong setting where it was supposed to be. It was like the double time, octave up setting, and it was supposed to be the other one, and it'd be like, it's supposed to go and it went screw the whole thing up. But that's
sometimes really, still in time, but
at least. But like, that stuff was really fun, like finding all the layers that you just couldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
So
No. And the embrace, the way you've embraced technology, I would say, not to go back to mid-century modern design and everything, but to me, that was always embraced, right? Whether it was materials and, to write a whole record, somewhat centered around the omnichord and everything, and just to have fun with that, and not be too nervous about the perception, honestly, is amazing. It's amazing. It's one of my favorites.
Dave was he's like a creative dude and trying to figure out ways to play the guitar that didn't sound like playing guitar, So, he is and even when he was in Botch, was an incredibly innovative guitar player in that regard. So, I always tried to find my little pockets to fill in and play some very simple stuff to kind of weave where he's not playing. So like either on the big parts, kind of double things, and then when
guitar harmonies.
Yeah, exactly. And we did a lot of that kind of noodly stuff together, harmonies.
Oh yeah.
But but throughout the kind of base of a lot of the songs, it was trying to find those pockets. And like even like you were talking about vocals, like trying to find, there was so much going on that trying to find a place to sing it was often difficult. But after writing kind of the first, or humming the first kind of melodies and being like, oh, I don't really like that, and then go off and try to do something new, the original idea was kind of where it needed to be, just to fit in with all the chaos,
cacophony. Exactly.
So, I mean, layers of guitars, kind of busy guitars, there's keyboards in there, and Corey with his that's where a lot of my focus for melody could come from, is just listening to kind of where Corey was playing, rhythmically, and kind of melodic element of some of that stuff, because that was kind of the underlying kind of bass, because it's a bass guitar, but the basis of the bass of the song. So
did tour take you to different places where you got to see some architecture potentially and appreciate that more?
I mean, most of the stuff in the European tours, most of that was just the kind of grand cathedrals and things like that, and things that that we just don't have here,
can I be corny and say park bench older than my country? I mean, that's incredible.
That lyric, I like that lyric a lot, and I think that came from trying to show how that architecture is hundreds of years old over there. And I don't know if there's a bench that old, I'm sure that there is. So I kind of invented, it's not like I saw an actual bench, but or
1774.
I was on a bench that I was like, this is obviously older than the United States of America. But
not literal.
You're in Scandinavian countries and you see that simplicity of design over there, or Iceland and that kind of thing, where there's this kind of simple
that cathedral
language. It's insane.
In Reykjavik. That was insane. And I didn't even really, when we were there, I didn't have my eyes out for modernist architecture, and then you show up to Reykjavik and it's just incredible.
There's
incredible
nothing like it. I mean, even its placement in
and it's an organ, right? Essentially the whole thing, something like that.
But that's a stunning piece of architecture. But I mean, you have a very the United States is just very I don't know. There's less of a sense of permanence unless you're in a city like Chicago or New York. But a lot of places, there's just kind of a strip mall aesthetic, and
I know.
It's
I know.
a little desperate and sad.
It's a little. I mean that's I try to keep my eyes out for. For me, probably architecture interest started with Frank Lloyd Wright, and then you'd sort of branch off from there a little bit. Okay, who's doing similar stuff in
Right.
different areas. What architect should I look up in, Kansas City while I was there, for example, and can I go see something kind of interesting?
Kansas City is a beautiful city. Like
I
they've
love
got
Kansas
some
City.
really cool architecture there.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you one thing. Like Corey, our bass player, has been doing these amazing paintings, and so we bought
Oh, wow.
this one from him.
Whoa.
Oh,
That's cool.
So,
that's
Trippy.
amazing.
and with kind of the, obviously you have to have the clock, but
Yeah, I have
Um,
one. I have one right above me.
but finding like the
Look at that piece.
pulling
cool.
pulling the colors out of some of the furniture that we have in the room, like
Nice.
have you heard
Oh,
of
I
Floyd?
love
Like
it.
the Floyd
Yeah, Floyd Modern.
yes. So
What's
they're
it,
doing
Detroit?
some stuff. Yeah, exactly. And they're doing this modernism, like this mid-century kind of vibe, like the plywood and
Yeah.
really simple materials. And I just love that kind of stuff. Modern design, can continue to be this work in the contemporary world. And riffing on that, I think is, when you see it and see the kind of new takes on the aesthetic or kind of the intention, really, like having something simple that is easy to mass produce and accessible, which is ironic if you think about kind of the prices or trying to buy some of this.
Well, we've just gotten out of control in this country. But,
yeah.
Or at least in
Yeah.
the 90s, right? Where maybe we're finding some grips here now, but
yeah, I mean, Charles Eames kind of the idea was to be able to produce this easy to manufacture furniture that was accessible to people.
right.
And now it's this iconic stuff that is in no way accessible to
No,
most
I know.
people.
Right.
I know.
So unless you find some kind of insane deal.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
I got mine used over here, and but probably still half the price of a new one,
Right.
which is a lot.
insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
But it's just one of those
insane.
things. Like you can put your money into something like that, and it's always going to be there. Like you are never going to
It'll keep its
lose
value.
the investment. So
I agree.
it's a good place to invest some. You shouldn't feel bad about spending money on something like that.
Look, I've always rationalized my large purchases by saying that I have researched them to an extent, right? It's like
that's how I do the hi-fi
okay.
stuff with my wife. I'm like, I get the discount. I could sell this for
get
what
the
I paid.
discount, right? Yes.
If I hadn't have bought this stuff, all that money would have just evaporated into food and grocery, and bills.
Right? Yeah. I set goals.
Yeah.
I got a job. It's great.
Yeah, it's fine.
No, that's awesome. I think the thing I like about modernist architecture in America is that it feels, similar to in Europe, where let's say a Gothic style, and for lack of going into too much depth, a Gothic style makes sense. Right in Hungary, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was there. It was contemporary at the time. To me, modernist architecture in America feels genuine to America. During the post-war period, it was new, and it's not to say it wasn't trend-wise happening all sorts of other areas or leading up to that, but it feels at home in America. And preservation wise, I've now learned a lot more of that about that with the podcast. I don't know if there's enough eyes on trying to preserve some of this stuff from the 50s and 60s, and not have it torn down and turned into a strip mall. So that'll be an area of focus for us, for sure.
Yeah, I think that sometimes it's difficult for people to see the value in some of these older, even if they're not like a name architect who designed the building, but they follow these, not rules, but the kind of aesthetic and the intention behind that kind of design. Yeah. And it's a shame that there's more value in destroying some of these homes rather than maintaining them, or, right. And sometimes it's just whoever owned a specific property grew old and had no ability to continue maintaining it. And then it just kind of ends up being sold off or what have you. But I mean, even like the Farnsworth House and like those kind of places where they have gone into disrepair and they've had to be
Yeah.
restored and put back together, or like old Frank Lloyd Wright homes and whatnot. But architectural like preservation of some of the mid-century stuff is kind of necessary, getting these places on to historic registries, and it's part of America.
I think it's starting to happen, but more DC, who we're doing the podcast with, said it pretty well. There's more losses than wins, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
With a lot of these conservancy boards, and I'm gonna try locally to join one in New Jersey, where I'm at right now, and just honestly learn more, and then how do we round up a bunch of real estate lawyers that want to put in some hours and have a little team that we can focus on interesting projects. That's kind of where my head goes.
I mean, it's interesting. There's so many Victorian homes on historic registries and all these and preservation attempts, and
they're cool. I've visited a bunch, and I mean, I look at like the materials in those, like some of the marbles that these folks imported are crazy. I went to the Hemingway house in Florida. That was they have a bunch of cats running around, 16 cats.
6 toes.
Those are neat. But yeah, I'm usually looking at materials because it's not exactly my design style. And, but yeah, there's a lot preserved and less modernist stuff.
If somebody has to like, and it seems like for that, individuals have to swoop in and spend the money instead of like an actual governmental program that's like, we are going to help preserve these essential cultural buildings,
gathering areas, buildings.
Well, that was like the lighthouse in Montauk. I don't know if it was like single-handedly saved by Paul Simon, but I know Paul Simon had something to do with it.
Oh, cool.
They still put up that ugly thing next to it, and the lighthouse just kind of sits there now. But yeah, he's saved it. I think. I don't know.
Part of the reason I want to keep extending where we can to speak to more influential folks in one way or another is like, okay, Leo DiCaprio, you live in Palm Springs, like let's go save something. Or Brad Pitt's really nerdy about Frank Lloyd Wright, like let's talk about it.
I mean, Palm Springs is like the I mean, if you want to see some mid-century modern homes, that place is there's enough. There's enough.
You're like, it's almost too much.
We
there's a lot there.
I've gone down there with my dad, and they have like a yearly kind of big huge show of different mid-century modern cellars, just with booths everywhere, and you can really find some of these amazing one-off kind of prototype things. Or down there's everybody knows the value of this furniture, so it's you're not going to find any bargains.
No
like you might find
no deals there.
you might find in Buffalo or something like that. But it's amazing to see some of these original or like pieces that you see in magazines that you never usually get to see in real life. Just like amazing stuff.
Yeah. And I hear some of the, stuff that looks uncomfortable is actually comfortable. Like the Bertoya wire chairs, people say it's an actually comfortable thing. I mean, you don't sort of know that until you try it, or, just locally, even I would say seeking out, a mid-century furniture dealer. If you've somehow made it to listen to this podcast, just go talk to just like you in the, hi-fi store. Just go talk to people who have a similar interest, and then all of a sudden you're all learning something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like just go take a little trip now that we're more safe and able to do that, and sit in some chairs. Locally in Seattle, have you made it out to certain pieces of architecture? I mean, there's a real modernist style right in the Northwest. Is that something you've done a little bit?
Not a lot of that. There is like the Pacific Northwest contemporary style with lots. It kind of is a development of that kind kind of modernism, but instead of steel and glass, you have wood and glass, and
totally.
so
It's a little more organic,
organic, warm environment nestled in, the woods on an island or something.
Right.
I haven't gone on touring the Northwest trying to find a lot of the places, because most of them are just private residences that you can't really get to.
A lot of them are. And then there's one, big needle you can't miss, right? And
that guy.
I do wonder sometimes if people, certainly if you go on the tour there, you learn the history a little bit, but honestly, I mean, it's such a, iconic building, and I didn't even know probably until, 3-4 years ago that was from a World's Fair, expo. It was,
show you something.
Pure retrofuturism, like most of those were a show for the world. And
my wife found this poster from the World's Fair.
Oh, nice.
We are still we're going to get framed here. Let me see if I can get oh man, it's so reflective.
I have to deal with that with this poster behind me.
Whoa.
Oh, it's
Does that even
that's cool.
show up?
Yeah.
So the
I see
monorail.
I see the dog.
Dog reflected in the poster.
I love it.
And there's my wife.
Now that's layers.
But the Science Center and the monorail and whatnot. So that's a cool print.
Yeah, that's a really cool print.
When the Space Needle was new, it was like the spaceshipy top part was painted orange, and it seems like it would have been much cooler than the gray that it is now.
Yeah, right. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was painted that color.
I didn't either.
Hey, check that out. We'll show some images. That's been our visual style here, is when we'll refer to a piece, for Facebook Watch and YouTube. We'll throw it up there. So we'll try to find some photos there with the orange.
Definitely.
I mean,
1 second. My wife said something. Oh yeah, the IMAX theater at the Seattle Science Center for the World's Fair was designed by the Eames.
Oh, no way.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. All right. Tell her, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, she has a master's in architecture and kind of fell in love with the mid-century stuff.
Yeah. Move on over.
I know, right? I was like, we should have her in this podcast.
I didn't know. Absolutely.
That's
maybe
awesome.
maybe that's the next one if she's interested. Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been super generous with your time. Thank you for that. Is there anybody? I did hear you say on one of the other interviews that you've really enjoyed this TV show, Room to Improve. Does that, I guess, architect Dermot Bannon include any mid-century stuff? Is that something worth checking out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those influences that it seems pretty apparent in what he seeks out in the show. Cool. He seems to find the subjects that are similar in the aesthetic that he's interested in. Awesome. He did another show where I can't remember what it's called, but he went and found really unique properties that were already, like really amazing properties. Cool. Explored them and discussed them. And there's always that, even if it's not explicitly stated, there's that kind of influence or tone of modernism that comes into those things. Sure. The simplicity or essentialism of structures where there's not a lot of unnecessary aspects to it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you have to, in many ways, I'd say, go to Europe. And I like Grand Design and some of those, but like HGTV, I mean, I love it in many ways, but some of the styles just, they're not as timeless. Let's put it that way.
Right. Not as timeless. I mean, you can only shiplap so many rooms before you're like, just put sheetrock in there.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Choose a color. That's great. So let's do this. One of my best friends, Justin, who we used to listen to, a lot of your stuff when we were roommates, lives in Capitol Hill. So when I come visit, maybe you grab a friend. We can go over to the store, hang out, grab a beer, And
Yeah.
that would be so great.
Yeah,
Jake,
hit me up.
it has been so awesome. I really appreciate the time, and just thank you. Such
Yeah,
a
of
cool
course.
thing, and
It's really cool to
yeah,
be able to talk about something in addition to music,
Yeah.
like something else that I'm interested in. So yeah, thanks for
totally
having me.
beautiful.
Have a good one, you guys.
Thank you so much for tuning in and letting me gush talking to one of my absolute favorite musicians. It was special to speak with him about something beyond music that we are both truly passionate about. I do intend to go hang and learn more about hi-fi with him and a beer in Tacoma one day. Go follow Jake at Jake Snider on Instagram and go listen to Minus the Bear. This is our 4th episode, and we've really appreciated everybody's positive sentiments and feedback so far. Our analytics tells us we've reached 1 million downloads per episode, which is below the goals we've set for ourselves. We heard that 5-star ratings could help us out, but really, just telling one of your mid-century modern loving friends or family about the Perspecta would be huge. Thank you, and stay tuned until the next mid-century.